Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason and Heather Creech here for episode 97, Simple Biz 360. So we are so excited to have our guest today. And Heather, if you could just give a little bit of a bio on yourself, be great.
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost. My name's Heather Creech. I am a certified health coach with Profile by Sanford and also health promotion specialist. And I transitioned to this kind of going backwards, was an educator for 15 years and grew up in a very tiny town of Troy, Missouri. I'm about an hour outside of St. Louis. Okay. And just excited to be here. I've always dreamed of, working in St. Louis and getting out of Troy my whole life. So it's kind of ironic how things have progressed and now I'm here.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you, and you got a great story. And folks, we just thank you for tuning in. We are coming to you today from Half Coast Studios in St. Louis. We have Matt and Dietz on the boards as usual. Crisp sound, great color. And we have a guest in the studio today, Heather's daughter, Cadence, who is joining us as well, watching mom in studio, which is always a lot of fun. So we are, coming to you from Creve Coeur, part of St. Louis, Missouri. And today, if you're a regular watcher of the show or listener and you haven't subscribed yet, man, we would love you to just, if you're on YouTube, if you're signed in, lower right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little favicon. Hover over it. Just subscribe, if you will. You have to be signed in, though, to do it. And if you don't want to watch or listening, we are on 27 platforms. So any one of those listening platforms, we'd love a like. We'd love a subscribe as well. And so I'm just going to paint a picture for some of the listeners here. We're in studio. We've got a mural on the board of a highway looking forward. We're just two people here with some water, and we are ready to roll on this podcast. So what's very interesting is Heather and I were able to meet each other at a Chamber of Commerce event. We're both members of the Chesterfield, Missouri Chamber of Commerce, and I heard Heather speak, and I just thought, wow, what a fascinating opportunity to get somebody who was a former educator in here to talk about a career switch and both parts of your career help people, so you're doing the same thing, just different ways. So I just thought it was fascinating. She agreed to come on, which I find awesome. And then on the Chamber of Commerce notes, anyone listening, by the way, if you go to SimpleBiz360.com, you will see a menu. If you go over to one of the tabs, Lunch and Learn, you'll see a menu of 5 different discussions that I offer Chamber of Commerceers at no cost. And you can just see there. If you're interested in having me come in, I'd love to do it. And it's just something that we're very passionate about. And we're enjoying our membership. And so we are going to kick off this podcast by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grew up in Troy? Big family, small family?
Kind of a small family. Our family started off from little town of Downing, Missouri. So we own a Century Farm up north. And so lived there for a little bit. My dad moved to Troy, Missouri, and then we lived in Virginia for a little bit while he was stationed out there. And so not a huge family, but very tight-knit. And okay. I kind of shared with you before, a very tight-knit military family, yes. Very proud military family. And so we moved around a little bit, but that's where we ended up settling. And so proud to be from there, but also proud to kind of spread my wings and kind of, shift audiences, like you said.
Yeah. How many generations of military do you have in the family?
We have 3 generations of Army in our family. Wow. So my grandfather, whose birthday's today, happy birthday.
Oh, wow.
He was an E7 and served in Vietnam.
Okay.
My brother served in Iraq. He's an E6. Both uncles served. And then my dad was also an E5. So he served in a time of peace. But best believe my work ethic and discipline and just how I operate in general is based on how my dad raised me. So...
Well, I could tell first time we had a discussion, if you don't mind me saying so. It was great hearing Heather say. I heard her overheard her saying, "Yes, sir," and I thought, wow, that's a very military answer. And I've never been in a military family, but it's just a very respectful way to address anyone, and so that's usually indicative of somebody that comes from there. But so that's cool. 3 generations. Vietnam, was it? Which Gulf was it? Which Gulf War was it? Or
So my dad served in a time of peace, and my dad never deployed.
Okay.
He just was active military in the States. And then my brother served 2 tours in Iraq.
Tours Iraq. I'm sorry. So it wasn't nothing in the Gulf. It was just Iraq. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very, very proud of him. He's home and doing well and playing for the St. Louis Warrior team, Blues hockey team out here. So very proud of him and seeing him do well.
And you mentioned that may be something that might be of interest for me to talk to him, because it deals with some PTSD type issues as well.
Absolutely. It's a band of brothers and women, or I shouldn't say just brothers, but just camaraderie of these soldiers that have gone through some tough things. And so hockey is their outlet, which I love. I think exercise is one of the most underutilized antidepressants, and in a world full of pills and procedures, like I feel like exercise and nutrition are key, which is obviously why I'm so passionate. So it's really cool to see our men and women come back from the military and have a place and a space, to get better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my apologies about getting the Gulf and the Iraq mixed up. But,
that's okay.
So growing up, what did that military background kind of what did that do for you as a young lady as it related to, your career? Did it make you think more about a career as a young lady or less, or?
It's interesting. I've been lucky to grow up surrounded by leaders. I'm pretty sure I was doing diamond push-ups by age 3.
Oh my gosh.
And it was funny because I knew there was always love and respect in our family. We didn't always talk about our feelings, but we certainly worked out. If someone broke my heart, we boxed about it. We didn't talk about it. So, growing up with such strong leadership in my family, I honestly never saw myself in a leadership position. I always kind of liked being the soldier, not the lieutenant. And so I feel like my work ethic very much came from my grandfather, my dad. I was raised to expect nothing and appreciate everything. And so when it comes to like my work ethic from my dad, we always we had this inside joke of lead me, follow me, or get that blank out of my way. So that's kind of how I've pushed myself to continue to grow as a leader is to push.
So is it fair to say that your role models were the men who served in your family?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The men in my family, and as well as my mom, just seeing them work from the bottom to the top of their companies. And it's always been inspiring to me. Nothing handed to us. I was the first grandchild on both sides of my family to go to college and finish. And so I feel like I've been raised to not take any of those privileges for granted.
Wow, that's awesome. So you went to college.
Yes.
Where'd you go to school, if you don't mind me asking?
So I attended Lindenwood University, and they were really well known, or still very well known for placing educators. And so I got my bachelor's degree from there and my master's from William Woods. And I, to kind of go back, I volunteered and helped start the first DARE camp out in Lincoln County as a counselor and then as a leader. And building those relationships with those kids and seeing them grow and develop, and that kind of kickstarted my education career, if you would. So going there was a no-brainer. I wanted to be an educator. I wanted to work with kids.
Interesting. So coming back from that background, and again, I'm assuming that anyone who serves like that in our military is doing so, especially voluntarily, to help. They've got that helper mentality. They've got that do good, want to serve others mentality. And, your DARE camp experience, your desire to go to school to become an educator. Is it fair to say that those apples, fell, and that you were one of those apples in the family, that you wanted to serve people as well?
Absolutely. I think that service leadership was just embedded in my DNA. I watched both my parents and as well as my uncles, my brother, and my grandfather go out of the way to help other people. Yeah. And I think that was a military thing that I always heard about, is when they did PT or they were running, if there was somebody all the way in the back of the line as they're running and trying to finish, their mile, for example, that whole team would get behind that last struggling comrade and push him forward. And that's just what I've been a person that loves the underdog, and I connected with a couple of kids at our DARE camp that just were the underdogs, and it was very cool to see them grow through that process. And being able to grow up and be an educator in the district that I grew up in was just something I was always very proud of.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and there's got to be a lot of gratification attached to the teaching process, because when you see, I mean, I was a sales trainer for a while, and just when you saw a light bulb go off, there was a gratification level there. But when you're educating people, you're really giving them the tools to go out in life. I mean, it's got to be gratifying, no?
It's amazing. I've seen my students, even though I resigned a couple of years ago, I've watched them, you know, we used to have a career day back in 5th grade. Like, what kid knows what they want to be in 5th grade? But some of my kids did, and they dressed up as specific careers, and then they grew up to be that, go into that field.
Wow.
So that's really cool. And to be able to still have such a strong bond that I've seen them graduate high school, college, get married. I'm being invited to baby showers now. So it's just been very cool to see them spread their wings and look at learning beyond 4 walls of the school that we were in.
Absolutely. When you get that person that comes back and says, "Hey, I just want to tell you," I don't know if they call you Miss Creech or, Miss
Mrs.
Heather,
Creech, yeah.
Mrs. Heather, Miss Heather. Hey, I just want to tell you, you meant so much to me when you were my teacher. Do you hear that once in a while? And I mean,
I do. And I'm always flattered by that, because I know I wasn't the strongest teacher.
Yeah.
At one point I did reach that level of, one of the lead teachers, but it's really cool to have a kid remember you after all those years, because sometimes you hope you're making an impact, and sometimes you really don't know. Sometimes those kids come back to you, they write you a letter, they invite you to their football games. Like, it's just, those relationships are huge. Yeah,
that's got to be special. I mean, I just have a few of those instances in my life, and it really puts a beat in your step for that day, and it's interesting. And you guys are in that, especially when you're able to reconnect with them as they've grown on and so forth. So that's extremely cool. Now, did you ever have any aspirations to go into the Army or the military?
Honestly, kind of.
Yeah, did you?
I did when I was little. I had the Army Be All You Can Be notebooks, and I would write down workouts, and I would, try to do the exercises my dad did. And but as I got a little bit older, I started taking that love for activity, and then I wanted to be a professional soccer player. And so, but yeah, there was a part of me that just really liked, how my family walked around very proud, and so yeah.
Very cool.
And then that transition when I was older, I was like, if all this fails, maybe I'll be FBI. I just always thought it would be cool to go that route.
Be in that, yeah. So did you, when you were a young lady, did you know that being a teacher was the end goal for you? I mean, what age did you realize that?
You're going to laugh at me. Probably age 5.
Really?
I knew, because I had a teacher go out of her way to reach me. I had a teacher see me beyond a student in her class, teaching me the basics. I don't know. There was just something about my kindergarten teacher that really was like, wow, she walked on water, and she still does. And you know what's funny? She was my first Facebook friend. I was the last person in my generation to probably join Facebook. And she was my first Facebook friend. And she just, that compassion, that love, that pride, there was just something about her that made you so excited to be there with her. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's when you have that kind of uplifting experience. I mean, it's just, you can't replace that. I know that, there's been a few teachers in my life that really impacted me, but I had one professor in college that I did an independent study with, and it was a pretty rigorous independent study. And, for him to pull me aside one day and just say, I don't say this to many people, but I just want to let you know, you're a diamond in the rough. And I mean, I rode that comment for years and years, because I had been a very troubled youth, been involved in a lot of drugs and alcohol as a youth, and I didn't have a lot of people telling me I was really, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. I wasn't being reinforced by a lot of positive things, because I wasn't doing a lot of positive things, But when I did it and he said that, my gosh, I mean, it's just meant the world to me, and it stuck with me for years, and still, every once in a while you think about it, because I'm still not a diamond, so I guess I'm in the rough. But at any rate, it meant a lot. So helping people, you're in this genre of helping people, and then something clicks with you, and you make a decision that's pretty large. So explain what happened when you decided to do something else.
Oh my goodness. This was probably the biggest leap of faith I've ever taken in my entire life. But, after 15 years of being an educator, I had the opportunity to be groomed to be a principal, and I was very fortunate to be a part of an aspiring administrator program where I got to see what principals do and got to walk it, talk it, breathe it. And there was something inside me that was just telling me that I don't think that was where I was supposed to be, or that wasn't my purpose, even though that was the next step in my career to advance. So, you know, I had received an award, like I said, that I was so proud of. It was kind of like a Teacher of the Year moment where I looked at one of the pictures online and, you know, they always say the camera adds 10 pounds. I was like, how many cameras are on me? And so at the peak of my career, I noticed that I was putting so much time, effort, and energy in my career that I put my own health and happiness, even my family at times, on hold. And so that's when I was like, I need to make some changes. And I was very fortunate to have some people in my life push me, challenge me, hold me accountable, and get me to where I was feeling good about myself again, taking better care of myself. It seems silly, but I think when you become a parent, you just put yourself on the back burner naturally. And so breaking through some barriers and getting to some places in my life, and from a health perspective, being able to accomplish that with everything that I had on my plate as an educator. I was bartending, I was getting my master's degree, plus mom. I was like, wow, I don't think this is for me. I think I want to take a year to figure it out. And so I resigned. I subbed for an entire year, taught for the love of teaching, which was so nice to pick and choose when I taught. And then I fell into an opportunity where I was able to, instead of personalizing learning for my kids, I was able to personalize activity, nutrition, and lifestyle plans for people who wanted to be where I was, in a place where they felt happy, healthy, and comfortable in their skin again.
Yeah. So explain that year a little bit about for our listeners and viewers. Now, you've made a big career life decision. You went to college for that. You got your master's for that. So that's got to have a big impact on your just psyche and your every day you wake up. But in the process, you're starting to get your health. You're starting to take control of your health. You're starting to feel different, I would imagine. You're starting to act different. I mean, take us through that year process, if you could.
Oh my goodness. I was making small changes throughout that last 2 or 3 years of education. And it was really cool because my students know me well. They know my patterns. They know where I left my water. They watched me. And so my students would even say, wow, Miss Creech, you're happy at 7th hour. Or, they would make these little comments. And I was just like, I thought I'm happy all day. And so I was making slow changes and becoming the person I'd always wanted to be. And, my kids got the best of me, but my family wasn't. So it was just like most people, you just pour your heart and soul into your career, and then you pour from an empty cup when you get home. And so the healthier I got, the more people would talk to me and ask me questions, and I would give them advice. I mean, I wasn't an expert by any means, but I spent my career trying to inspire kids to focus on, what do you love, what are you good at, and what do you want to change about the world? And the healthier I become, the more the dots started to connect with my great-grandparents living to their 90s, and then a group of my grandparents that didn't. And the only correlation between the two of those, generations were truly just diet, coming from a farming family and looking at, how we progress as a society. I just was like, wow, this is something I can really get passionate about, helping people. My curriculum changed quite a bit as an educator. So I just knew that if I were to ever dive into the health and wellness realm, what the human body needs is not a secret. So I remember having that conversation with the last group I ever taught. I took a very powerful picture with that last group because I kind of involved them in the decision. I said, I love helping others. I love biology. I'm really good at building relationships and inspiring change. What I want to change about the world is, being able to prevent awful diseases and cancers through better lifestyle changes. And so never in a million years did I think that I would go this route, because this job didn't exist. In fact, I think that's a challenge for educators right now, is we're preparing kids for a future that we don't even know what that looks like. So little did I know that the wheels were turning to get me here. And I'm so grateful for unanswered prayers too. Yeah. I mean, I thought I was going to be a principal.
Wow. Holy smokes. So you said a couple key things there that I want to just kind of use as guideposts for the rest of our discussion. Small changes, gradual. You didn't use the word gradual, it's small changes. So, again, I think that as we go down this wellness path as a society, as people, individuals, we're living in a society that just projects and promotes instant gratification constantly. And, you and I, we've gone down some of those same paths. Thank goodness for my wife, because she's really taken me down a healthier, gluten-free, organic, non-GMO type path. But, you're talking about a guy that, I played college soccer, so I played as well. So played Division III at, 157, and I get married, I'm 185. All of a sudden I'm 229. And, today as I sit here, I'm about, 210 and a much healthier 210, but still, I've struggled with that process of putting on weight and not looking for the magic element to help me, but realizing that it was a gradual, gradual process. And in that process needed to be changes of nutrition, exercise, food intake, amounts of food, and the whole thing. And it really kind of gels together. So we have similar epiphanies of sorts. And so thank goodness I've been on that path for, probably a good 8 years, with my wife leading the way, because she really likes to, make sure we're eating the right things. But so here you go through this, you realize how it changed you. Where did the actual next career position, how did that evolve?
Kind of interesting. I actually heard about Profile by Sanford through a colleague friend of mine who was a PE educator and a huge nutrition advocate for another school district. And she said, hey, I know you're kind of transitioning in between careers. Have you ever thought about being a health coach? And instantly I went, credibility is everything to me. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go to any more school to go into more debt. Like that was an option for me. But what was great about this company is they invested in me. They sent me off to training in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And that's when I pushed my chips in. I didn't even know what Profile by Sanford was, because we didn't have one in St. Louis. And so having that opportunity to get that education and get that support up front from that friend of mine, it changed everything.
Yeah, interesting. So, and there's an entrepreneurial edge here. You mentioned to me you painted a picture that stuck in my head of being at a kitchen table, scratching things out, how to do this and that. So I want to get to that as well, because I think that's a very interesting element. But how did you muster up the courage to make this decision? I mean, what was it that inspired you to actually make that decision?
Oh my goodness. I had several people in my corner that they knew me well. They knew what I wanted to do. They knew what made me happy. Like I said, being on the other side of that coaching table and having someone hold me accountable, I was pushed. And, my husband, my kids, my dad, everybody was just like, just jump. I read several books too about making that career change. And I wanted to make a decision that didn't impact my family in a bad way. But lucky for me, my husband was like, if this is what lights you up, do it. So
interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. So a lot of support. So,
yes.
I watch these, we watch some of these TV movies and stuff, and you see, these people have these wonderful career paths, or they're aspiring to do this or the other. And all of a sudden they go back to their hometown and they make muffins in a muffin shop, and it gives them all kinds of happiness. So, I'm listening to your story. Here you are on the brink of getting to a possible consideration for principal level, which I would think, in the educator community, that's a pretty good pinnacle. That's a pretty high aspiration. That may be the last post for a lot of people, and they hold it for a long time. And to be that close to something like that, and reshuffle the deck and do something else, just blows me away. That you had the courage, the wherewithal, the confidence in yourself to do it. But was it? I mean, is that a lesson in support network right there? Is that really what made it possible?
Yeah, I think it was 50-50. It was support and having people by my side that said, no matter what you do, we've got you.
Yeah.
But also I think I had to really look deep inside and ask myself, is this something I want to do the rest of my life? Am I doing this to make more money? Am I doing this because it's the next step for an educator, or am I supposed to be serving a higher purpose? And I struggled with it, and I wrestled with it for a long time. But then I realized, teachers have a great retirement that's always hyped up, but I got to a point where I felt like I had grown as much as I could as an educator and a leader. And I'm so grateful to be able to test drive that principal life, because it's tough. I had good friends that were principals that are like, Creech, do you really want to do this? And I'm like, why not? So the more people told me I was crazy, I want to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And so that moment where I turned in that letter of resignation was one of the hardest moments, but also I had this race, this adrenaline rush, like I'm doing this, and look, Ma, no hands. I remember texting my mom on the way out of my school parking lot, like I'm doing this. And I had this fire in me.
Wow. So, well, I give you a lot of credit for doing that. It's a big leap. But you were confident in it and you had the support. And so how does Profile, so you get trained in South Dakota from Profile by Sanford. Explain to us a little bit about what Profile does and what you do within that network.
So Profile by Sanford was actually developed by doctors and researchers out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And what their focus was really addressing the obesity epidemic in the United States. And they found, simple, structured plans help, but also our biggest component was making sure that those protocols were medically sound, doing what's right for the member, but holding them accountable. And what really makes us special, in my opinion, is the coach. Compassionate coaching was something that they harped on, building that relationship and really building that relationship to where a member could come in that private one-on-one coaching session and really be honest. We've seen breakthroughs, breakdowns in those coaching rooms, and it's a two-way street. And so what I liked about it when I was being trained in this position was it wasn't me, the expert, and you learning how to lose weight. It was we worked together, we build this plan and set you up for success. And having worked a little bit in a gym part-time, I had seen the same people losing and gaining the same 10 pounds. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not making the changes here that I could do with this company. And so it's backed by researchers, dietitians, nutritionists. And I felt like I could truly help people from both the nutrition and the medical side, help make these significant changes, gradual, and keep it off.
Yeah, nice. So so that's the kind of the bones of what you're going to be doing. So you leave there, you get home, you get to the kitchen table, and now you got to map out a plan. Now the entrepreneurial part of your adventure starts. What happens then?
Oh my goodness, this was tough. I've never in my entire life, I used to teach lessons on building a business, like mock businesses, but to actually do it was wow. So I locked arms with my colleague, Sandy, that gave me the opportunity, Julie, and we sat at my kitchen table and a private library, and we dug into our personal contacts. We used social media. We did booths. We did everything that we could to let St. Louis know that we were here to be a true catalyst for change. And it was hard grunt work. I think sometimes building a business from social media can be glamorized, but it was really about capitalizing on the relationships and the reputation we already had within our own social networks, our family, our friends, our own physicians, and really just working those leads from our laptop and setting up opportunities to speak and share what we can do to help change lives.
Yeah. And it's a different kind of, I would imagine it's a different kind of sale, because when you're appealing to people to talk to you and meet with you about their health conditions and about a better future, a better life. I mean that's as we get older, we realize the mortality that's built into everything. And I know for myself that love affair of exercising becomes much more important. It does. And because you realize that every day you work those muscles, it might just be another day that you're around, and you start thinking like that. And so I imagine, I just never have sold anything or been part of anything that was so beneficial, I guess. It's got to be. So now you're starting to do that. You're starting to see people say yes to your appointments. Now, what's it? So somebody says, you know what, Heather, I want to do this with you. What's the onboarding process at Profile look like after somebody makes that decision?
Well, first and foremost, it's we don't take it lightly, because we know that the minute they walk through our doors, they're filled with fear, anxiety, what ifs.
Right.
Kind of like this picture that we talked about. People have failed forward so many times on their own that when they walk through those doors, it's all about listening, period. When they walk through our door, we've already sent them a brief health survey to make sure that we're appropriate for them. Very rarely are we inappropriate for somebody, but we make sure that we put together a plan that's suitable to set them up for success, which is something a lot of people haven't had in a very long time. We give them a tour. We do a 3D body scan that's revolutionized our coaching. It takes 21 different measurements to the nanometer that we can show our members their progress every 6 weeks. I always say the watch pot doesn't boil. That number doesn't define you, and this is so much bigger than weight loss. The weight loss is a byproduct of you making these gradual changes. And in that consultation, we just listen. We go over their health history. We look to see what support system that they have in place. We talk about the day in the life of what does that look like? And that's where, as a coach, is such a good opportunity that we can highlight some of the things that they're doing well. Because I think, unfortunately, and I did this as well, and maybe you've associated good and bad with food choices. I made a good or I'm bad. We get to kind of push that aside and look for opportunities of things that they're doing well and help bridge the gap between what they're doing well and where they want to be. And why is their body not releasing? And we truly set up a structured plan of, this is your goal. This is when we know you can hit it. If you lean on us, commit to that one-on-one coaching, step on that scale once a week, follow the plan, and we're not going to let you fall. I always, like I said to my students, it's funny, I use a lot of analogies that I did in the classroom that I do with the members that we coach. We're going to throw you the life jacket, but it's your responsibility to swim to it. And I promise you, we're going to teach you how to keep this weight off for good.
Nice. So what's the input in your coaching of nutrition, exercise, and I don't know, just nutrition and exercise, those two?
Yes, we focus on nutrition, activity, and lifestyle.
Okay.
And we layer one variable at a time. So once a member's onboarded with us at Profile, we just focus on their intake. And we personalize it. That's what's so great is no two plans are the same. Some members come to us like you that love to exercise. We have some members that come to us that don't even want to see a gym. So we just focus those first 4 weeks on their intake and proper portions. And through those coaching sessions, we have these learning modules where we focus on portion size, social dining. One of my favorite modules that we work on in the coach room is focusing on non-scale victories. I mean, those can be as simple as someone wrapping a towel all the way around them for the first time.
Bingo.
Someone being able to go golfing and not feel it for 2 or 3 days. So there's always a lifestyle module built within that in helping us move towards that behavior change. Yeah,
interesting. Well, I'm so glad you said that because I've never been a guy that likes to get on a scale, but when I put on the belt and I go, wow, I'm at that hole now.
Yeah.
I'm not. Oh, this is working. And again, it just goes up and down and all around. But for in my life, but those are moments when you hear your wife go, wow, I can actually put my arms around you now. My wife's 5'1", and so she puts her arms around me easily now, where she couldn't make the whole meet at one point. And it's just little victories like that. You're like, wow, okay, so this is working. So I'm glad you said that, and that must be those are little victories, but they're big victories, aren't they?
They really are. And I tell you what, to have someone come to us being so afraid that this is not going to work, and then stepping on our 3D scanner at their 6-week progress check-in and saying positive things about their body.
Yeah.
Coach, look at my arms. Yeah. Look at my legs, and they start pulling out the positive and highlighting the great things that they're doing well, because each and every week we focus, is it a weight loss week or is it a learning week?
Right.
And hearing those non-scale victories, they post them on social media, but the ones that they share in the coach room are just they're life-changing.
Yeah. Interesting. So what's really interesting about this whole philosophy of coach, I'm a self-motivated person in a lot of ways. I love to have a coach on the pitch with me to tell me, to guide me. And I couldn't imagine, advancing in soccer without a coach, or baseball without a coach. But in my own life, my own exercise life, I'm kind of my own coach. And so I've never really had to rely on that, because I can get up at 4 a.m. if I'm training for a marathon and get out there and do 8 miles or 10 miles, or mix up all my different speed work and distance and all this and that. I could always do that, but so many people can't. And so many people that I've talked to kind of have a resistance in some cases to that whole movement of coaching. But as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing how utterly important your role is in this process for people who haven't been able to tackle that, on their own. And you actually become their buddy system, correct? I mean, am I gleaning this right?
Absolutely. We're the voice on the shoulder that, keeps them going. We hear that a lot. Hey, I went to this birthday party and I almost did this, but I remember we said, or
Yeah.
you said, or, yeah, that's exactly. It's a buddy system. They become part of our profile family, and it's a safe space for them to be completely honest about their intake and what they're struggling with. And so much of those conversations are deeply rooted, that influence, you know, whether our bodies are releasing or not. And so it's a privilege to be in that room, because you see changes in those members before they necessarily see them. But when they come in and they reflect and learn, you know, I always say you learn, you do, you reflect. So when they come in and they reflect on how that week went, or whatever that they were focused on, maybe it was sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
They're so proud of themselves. So it's so cool to see that empowerment in them. They're like, I'm doing this. I'm making this happen. There's no rearview mirror. I'm going forward.
So what's the difference? You know, a student from 10 years ago comes up and hugs you and says, "Oh, Mrs. Creech, you know what? You were my favorite teacher. You helped me do this." Or somebody coming up now and just with tears in their eyes saying, "Coach Creech, give me a big hug. I can't believe I'm 10 pounds down." And I mean, what's the difference in that feeling? Or is it the same feeling for you?
Oh my goodness. It's the same feeling, because I know, like I said, what it's like to be on the opposite side of that desk from a teacher that's touched my life. I know what it's like to be coached and pushed to a number that I never thought I'd ever see after kids. It's like you found your purpose. So I feel like those stepping stones of education led me to this. And I truly feel like I never left education. It's funny because sometimes people try to separate that. Well, you were an educator, you were this, but I just feel like I never left education. My audience shifted.
Okay.
And so, but that feeling of knowing that you've touched that life, and knowing that they're making those changes, whether you were their teacher or their coach, and knowing that that's going to impact their kids and their kids' kids, it's just, there's nothing like it.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm so glad you said that. So really, it's just you're really doing the same thing, just to a different audience. But the process, you're educating, you're helping, you're equipping, you're empowering, you're illuminating things that people didn't know. And we talked off camera a week or so ago about a lot of the, nutritional aspects that I would encourage anyone out there who's not really truly understanding what's has been going into our foodstuffs for 30 years, to stop right now and start your research and go and start looking at things, because once my eyes were open to that, it was, I went down a little rabbit hole for a while, because you're like kind of excited about learning. Wait, how didn't I not know this all those years? What's this? What's that? And, it all started with, I had some stomach issues that I couldn't eradicate. And my wife said, "You've got to go to a health food store. We have to talk to someone there and get educated. There's something going on." And finally, when I went down there, gentleman, I had him on. He was my podcast 60, O'Fallon Nutrition. So Dave said, "Man, you're just at a certain age where your body's just not, your gut's just not generating the proper enzymes to digest your food." It happens. I think it's just a slight adjustment in enzymes. And I'm like, So I took some supplements and everything changed, and it has never gone backwards for 20 years. So that was kind of the catalyst for me. And then I started really, with my wife and I, we dove into this educational process, and it's really eye-opening, disappointing, scary.
All of those.
To learn about what we've been eating just because the television ads told us to, or we didn't know any different.
That's so true. And it can be extremely frustrating and confusing. So that's why, when our members come to us, again, we try to meet them in the middle, and that education piece is huge, because, we work with diabetics, type 1 and type 2. We have specific plans in place for them, and trying to show them that when they read a label, there's 71 ways to hide sugar in a sugar-free label.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just heartening. And so, but it's also nice that we can have those conversations and show them that they can still make progress and avoid those. And like you said, more whole foods, and how do you do that? So, losing weight is extremely difficult. You've got our genetics, you've got our environment, you've got our Western diet all working against us. And so once you, like you said, once you go down that rabbit hole, it's it's an incredible thing, kind of like the light bulb in the classroom.
Mhm.
You see people that really start to care about what they put in their body and where it
Yeah.
comes from, eating like our ancestors,
Yeah.
my great-grandparents, living to their 90s, dying of, you don't even hear, he passed away from old age. Like that was it. So helping people take that information and live long, healthy lives is what we aim to do.
It's an amazing. Yeah. So I switched cereals a while ago and went to an 8 chromosome, kind of like ancient wheat. It's called einkorn wheat. And it's, you're taking what I guess normal wheat has 32 chromosomes. You're removing all this stuff from it. You're going back to what's really been an ancient grain. And you're now, I'm eating a cereal that doesn't have all those things in it. And just things like that, realizing that there's so much inflammation, there's so many issues, digestion, just you name it, that's coming from just a simple decision like that. For so many years eating processed cereal that you just, it tasted good, but it had built-in sugar. No, it didn't have built-in sugar. It had about 17 varieties of built-in sugar, right?
Yes.
And gums and all, like, what are all these gums, I mean, it's just crazy. So it's been so neat. And so this is part of the education process that you go through as well, So for those folks who don't know, could you give just a URL out for the website on Profile and in St. Louis? Is it different than elsewhere in the country?
And thank you. Profile by Sanford, we're nationwide. We're in every state. So if you navigate to www.profileplan.com and put in your zip code, you'll be connected to the closest profile in your area. And so, we have a lot of members that come to us because we're close, or we have some members that we coach virtually. Okay. So, but profileplan.com and put in your zip code and we'll take it from
bingo
there.
And that'll kind of get you off and running. Do they also have like Instagram, Facebook accounts and things like that?
Yes, we are on Facebook, and then we also have like our franchises are on Profile by Sanford _ MSP Wellness.
Okay, say that again.
Profile Plan _ MSP Wellness.
MSP Wellness. Now,
yes.
Is that the company you work with?
That's my franchise owner's company, yes. Okay. So, Tom Grady, not Brady, is from St. Louis, and so he swooped in and bought us right before we opened our doors, and so we're so proud to be here.
That's awesome. Now, do they call you Creech over there?
They do. Yeah? They call me Coach Creech.
Coach Creech.
It just kind of stuck. It's a soccer thing.
It's got a ring to it. So,
thank you.
Now, were you a striker, midfielder?
Right midfield.
Wow.
And I married a goalie.
Did you really?
I did.
Wow. Now, did you play at Lindenwood as well?
Actually, I didn't. Because of the education that I was receiving, I had to do a lot of things in the classroom. So I actually danced at Lindenwood. I was on the Lion Line dance team, and then played recreational soccer as long as I could until I had babies.
Nice. My daughter graduated Lindenwood in 2007 with a criminal justice degree, so she went there for a bit. Great school and a campus that just blew up size-wise when she was there. I mean, all those dorms and the entertainment center, the theater, just huge.
But, I know, it's like Mizzou, but in St. Charles.
I mean, it was great education. She really liked it. So let's just, before we kind of hone in on the end, let's talk a little bit, because we talked about this off camera. And it's really something that I know it is a piece to what you do, but I know it's also a piece to society. And that's the idea of personal responsibility. When you're coaching people, how is it hard to get them to realize that it's them and their decisions and their lifestyle that they have to take responsibility for? Because we're so used to shift blaming and blame this, blame that, blame them. I mean, how does that work?
It can be difficult at times, but that's where that coaching piece is so imperative. We highlight what they're doing well, and we look for opportunities that they can to do a little bit better, whether that's tracking their intake, making exercise a priority. In our coaching sessions, we try to construct our questions to where they're leading themselves to the answer. We're not always just spoon feeding them. They've got to realize that at the end of the day, it's them that has to prioritize their water intake and prioritize good sleep and make sure they're putting food into their body that they're not eating for pleasure, but they're eating for necessity. And what is it doing for their body? So, and they have to own up to that and report that in that coaching session. And sometimes it's hard, but if you have that good foundation and that consultation and you've dug into their why, they're excited to be held accountable. But every member's journey is so different. But yeah, it can be difficult. Sometimes I feel like as coaches, we want it more for our members than they want it for themselves.
Yeah, well, I could see that. I can see that because I really think some of the dangers that we're involved in at this point as a society is we've disassociated ourselves from this delayed gratification element of life through all the conveniences that have been trickled our way, and ownership. I find it in business it just blows me away how many issues, when you get down to issue resolution and things like that, things that need a pragmatic, B cause C and A cause B, and there's so many people that just don't want to take ownership of A or B, and they just, it's hard to find that today. And so, what you do, people have to realize, hey, this is not an overnight solution. This is a commitment. You've got to take ownership of the commitment. And, we're talking about months and months here. We're not talking about days and days here, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, in that consult, we go over, here's your goal. This is when you're going to hit your goal. If you are able to execute these things that it takes to be a member, you may get there sooner. It may take longer, and that's okay. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because, I said this in the classroom and I say this in the coach room. If you're willing to do the hard work now, be held accountable, check in, focus on your intake, take this commitment serious, then life's going to be a heck of a lot easier later. If you're willing to do what's easy now, which is drive through, skip the workout, blow off coaching, life's going to be really hard later. So if you're pushing your chips in with us, we're pushing them in as well. And if I don't see you, I'm going to ask if we broke up. I'm going to call you. We're going to make sure you stepped on your scale at home. And so, we have to be very firm on the commitment because, we take our role at Profile very serious because we know that those small, subtle changes that they make are going to have lifelong rewards in the end. We look at things not just weight and BMI. We do a cardiovascular screening. So every 3 months, we're looking at the elasticity of your arteries. Your heart should be getting healthier. We also do a genetic test where we can help our members understand how their body metabolizes starchy carbohydrates. We see a big trend in that. Members are wanting to just completely rip out carbs out of their diet, which is your body's preferred mechanism for energy. And so having all of those different pieces of data and showing them this is hard, but life is going to be so much easier once we cross that threshold.
So you really, so data is really your evidentiary piece. I mean, you really show them that, through proven evidence, you're making progress. Here's the evidence, and here's, so and that's, people can bite off on data, and I imagine that helps with the motivation to keep going down the road. No, I mean, I would think.
Absolutely. I like I said, I think people are so frustrated and trying to do this on their own that they don't remember what success feels like. And so this program is designed for our members to have great success right out of the gate. And then, the weight loss kind of tapers to about 2 pounds a week for males, 2 pounds for females, and then 3 pounds for males a week. Yep. And once they start feeling better and they start, like you said, our gentleman with the belt loops, our gentlemen always go by belt loops. Once they start having those little feelings of success and seeing the change on and off the scale, because they both matter. Yeah. They're getting what they paid for. They invested in coaching. They want results for the first time for some ever. Then it's easy to rinse and repeat when it's working. Yeah, and so we just slowly peel those training wheels off. And I always say, we're not looking for lifetime members. We want you to get to a point of self-efficacy where you've got this. You know how to eat for your body type. You feel healthy and happy where you're at, and live the life that you deserve. Yeah.
So, another, we won't get into it, but another charged, discussion point over the last year and a half, obviously, is COVID. And when you get down to understanding cause and effect, when you understand a situation, medical situation, then you understand treatment, or you understand, and then you compare that to preventative lifestyle. Can you speak to that preventative element a little bit? Because I think that, again, we're so embroiled in being used to going to the doctor to get something for something that many of us overlook and ignore the fact that maybe we would have never gone to the doctor if we had done something preventative.
Absolutely. And I tell you what we don't know, right? And so I'm glad you said that because, we don't send a football player out to play without his helmet and his body armor. Same thing with the soldier. They don't go out into war without their proper armor. And I think sometimes we forget that we're not helpless,
Right.
that the food that we put in our body is our armor. We're helping
Right.
our cells function. We're building an immune system so we don't get sick every time we touch a surface or come into contact with somebody else. And so, we hear that a lot. We've had some members come through our doors that have said, my doctor said I need this surgery, and then come to find out 3 months of coaching with us and focusing on healthier food choices and water intake, their BMI is too low for that dangerous surgery. So, there's a lot of pills and procedures that are quick and easy but they don't change people's behaviors or habits. And so we take a lot of pride in that this is going to set your body up for success. Heck, even during everything that transpired.
Yeah. So what a great phrase. Set your body up for success. Yeah, folks, I can't stress this enough. And I mean, this is just my own thought, but going through what we have the last year and a half, I think a couple things have really jumped out at me. And one of them is, number one, never really realized how much the medical community is necessitated on almost in a way letting a problem create itself, and then they have the solution when there's another way to do it. And man, if you have not learned how to research on your own, I suggest you start doing some deep dives into some research to figure out, for yourself and your own body, what's going on, what are the right decisions, because there's so much in the prevention element that can, what did you say again? Set you up
for success.
Right. Bingo.
Truly. And, when I learned about Profile by Sanford's 2 overarching goals were to completely reverse artery disease and end type 2 diabetes, that's when I was like, yes. And it can be done. If food can hurt us, it can help us, and it can heal us. Yeah. And we've been very fortunate at Profile by Sanford. Like I said, we follow our protocols that are designed by those doctors and researchers, but also we've been able to lock arms with physicians and NPs in the St. Louis community that truly want better patient outcomes. And so for some of our members that lose 5 to 10% body fat, that was actually the day that I met you, which was kind of cool. I got emotional about it because I'm so excited to deliver that paperwork and say, hey, look at your patient. We have a mutual patient. Look at their progress. They're doing this. They've lost 15% body fat.
So I'm glad you said that, because that was when you said that little when you made that statement at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. That's what was the light bulb on my table, and I said I've got to go talk to her and get her on the show. So part of the profile mechanism is you go back to, if I'm one of your onboards and you're working with me and you're my coach, you actually collaborate with my doctor. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we take a lot of pride in that. So for example, if a member comes to us that maybe has hemochromatosis, for example, and they have to really watch their iron intake and look at their protein levels. So what we would do in that onboarding process is we would collect their physician information, equip either the member or take it. Actually, I've done this for a member, take it to their doctor for their approval. Here's our different protocols that we have here at Profile. What would you recommend for your patient? Sometimes we've been told that it's not appropriate. Sometimes we are told it is. And that's the meal plan that we hold our member accountable to. So we work with them. So if they're in any kind of medication, that we also communicate, that's because 15% body fat, we should see a reduction in blood cholesterol medicine or insulin. I have a gentleman, that I met literally the day he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I met him. Wow. And he's going to be weaned off insulin this year. He has worked so hard, and I'm very proud of that. And at first his doctor was like, we collect that information. We don't need it. And I was like, no, look at it again. Look at his progress. And so being assertive and showing up for our members and advocating for them, we've seen some really great things from a medical standpoint happen for our members to where they don't need that medicine the rest of their life.
Do the doctors by and large embrace this collaboration or information or feedback, or does it rub them wrong sometimes?
In a perfect world, I think they would embrace it. But with everything that's transpired over the last year and a half, I have to be short and concise with them because they're very stressed. And so I try to go in there and just let them know We're here to help elevate their practice and support their patients. So it's been about 50-50. Some doctors are like, wow, this is amazing. And we have had some doctors that are like, I already collect that data. So I still show up to either one of them because what we do is so important. And I want them to know that they're making these changes and they're doing the hard work. They're making that 2-cheek commitment that the rest of the population isn't always willing to make. And they should be proud.
Yeah, and if nothing else, your member has got to be so stoked that you guys would go the extra mile to do that. I don't think I've, when you said that, I was like, wow, that's really an interesting, component of how Profile operates. I've never heard of that before, but I think I shared with you, my doctor is very, likes to be very proactive and preventative. And I came down with gout 3 years ago, and we talked about this offline, where I went in there once I was diagnosed with gout, which basically your body overproduces uric acid. So it happens a lot in men. And it was just a situation that was really painful. And I went to the doctor and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd really like to tackle this, preventatively. I want to, because, you have to change your diet. You have to change it completely. So we structured out a way to do it and what I should go on. I had to go down and do a lot of research on my own and find out, what was adequate to eat, acceptable to eat. And you really have to watch certain elements of your diet, mostly your purines. But so at any rate, in saying this to him, he said to me, gosh, you're the first patient I've ever had that has decided to do this on their own without medication. And I said, what? You got to be kidding me. He goes, no. He says, most people just come in and say, doc, I'm not switching my lifestyle. Just give me something to mask the pain. I'll deal with it. And I think I mentioned to you, he had somebody that was diagnosed unfavorably with diabetes. And he, person said, doc, just give me whatever you need. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. Well, what about at 36, 35, 38? What happens if you're dealing with blindness or you're going to lose a limb? We'll deal with that then. And I find that really I guess I look at that and I go, wow, where did we sell the person the wrong bill of goods along the way? How do people really think that we can just take things to mask it?
I don't know, kind of like you said, that token society, we want a quick fix. We don't want to dive a little bit deeper. And unfortunately, that medication may help with one ailment, but cause 2 or 3 down the road. And I feel like that's where that education piece comes in. And we're real with our members. You can continue to take this medication, or we can really work together to get you off of it and potentially save you money. Money is something that a lot of members bring up to us as like, oh, I don't know if I want to invest in this, but they're already spending so much money of putting things into their body that's not helping them get better. It's helping them stay within the system.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. There you go. That's what yes. Last year and a half, if it's shown me anything, get out of the system, get out, onto your own health system. But yeah, so on the end, just to let you know how gout worked out, I did have to end up going on allopurinol. I tried for 2.5 years to beat it. And if you've never heard gout explained, it's kind of the way I explained it. Basically, open up my knee, take a golf ball, cover it with glue, put it in a bowl of glass shards, and then let it dry, and then put it back in my knee, sew my knee up, and go, okay, now go ahead and walk. I mean, that was like, the pain. I mean, I was shooting through the roof with this thing. And so I couldn't beat it. I tried for 2.5 years. And so, it's the only medication I take, but I mean, at least I gave it a shot. I couldn't beat it. So.
Yeah. And it's appropriate in that situation. That's amazing. And we're seeing more and more doctors have that holistic approach, medicine second, whereas a lot of doctors that are kind of, I don't want to say old school, but it's like medication first. And then, I've been very privileged to work with a couple of doctors in the St. Louis area that were like, we don't know nutrition. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't know your world, but I know that if we partner together, we can help this patient get better.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. So, what you've experienced it, I've experienced it, but for somebody who hasn't experienced it, somebody listening right now, watching right now that is struggling with obesity and poor health. And they were like, you know what, should I do this? I would love you to paint a picture of the liberating feeling, if you can even paint the picture, a liberating feeling of a member who has gone through this for 4 or 5 months. What do they tell you they feel like? How liberated are they? How free? How much better quality of life are they living now, in their words?
Oh my goodness. I get these messages, calls, and conversations on the daily, and, little things that we take for granted, like, thank you, I'm able to fly on an airplane and use a regular seatbelt. Thank you so much. I'm able to get on the ground and play with my grandkids. Thank you so much. I'm actually the size that I was when I met my husband, and we're renewing our vows. Like, just seeing that confidence rebuilt, knowing that they can go and do things that they avoided. I mean, we work with members that don't even go on vacation because they are so afraid to put on a swimming suit. So there's so many things that are holding our members back because of the extra weight that they're carrying, that once, in that consultation, we do paint that picture. What are you looking forward to most when you hit your goal weight? And it usually is tied to clothing, their relationships, or being able to go out into the world and live it to the fullest.
Wow. And so when you get that kind of feedback, it's just like, does that bring tears to your eyes, basically?
Yeah, every day I get goosebumps. Yes. I had a gentleman that one of his goals was he needs to lose about 167 pounds. He got to that first threshold of 19 pounds, and he's like, I can do this. He's 5 years from retiring, and he's going to live his best life.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of him, just
wow.
Little things like that, like being able to shop at different stores.
Yeah.
Or, I'll give an example of a nurse that we're working with. She's one of my dearest friends, and I'm so insanely proud of her. But, she's lost 75 pounds. This is someone who works in the healthcare industry that puts herself last by nature. And, she's like, I can wrap a towel completely around me. She's just flabbergasted.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's awesome, because the feeling you get, I know, when I turned 60, in many ways, health-wise, I look better than I did at 45, and my kids would even say, Dad, and it was really because of a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment, a lot of changes. But, you really do. You feel good, and it's just, you get out of bed with a different attitude, and you go to work, and you do your day, and you interact with people in a different way. And it's just, it's definitely fun. So, fun at work. How do you guys, Heather, I worked for a company for 3 years when I moved out here. You could not have fun if you smiled.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, is this Earth? What is this? I've never even heard of this. But there are a lot of companies where, work is work. And so how do you guys do fun at work with Profile? How do you make it fun?
Oh my goodness. We have a lot of fun at work with our members that we've built good relationships with each other. We leave each other little notes. We've done jokes of the day or the week. We always, buy fun snacks and drinks to keep in the refrigerator in the back. Gosh, we play fun music when we're at work. We always try to set up an environment that they want to be there. We've been told a couple of times that our store looks like Apple meets nutrition. Like, you come in and it's like,
oh, wow,
it's an experience. And so to work alongside the coaches that I have at Profile that are just so excited.
Wow.
When you come into Profile, I kid you not, we're like little elves. Like, we poke our heads out and we're like, welcome to Profile. Like, everybody's excited to be there, and it's contagious. We just, and honestly, having fun with each other outside of work is a priority. Yeah. So our company actually sets aside a budget for us to, spend $50 a month on ourselves for self-care, and also to go do something each quarter as a team. And we always go and do something fun. We did a bungee dancing class where we hung and bounced from the ceilings, and,
oh, cool.
So fun. So yeah, fun, and Fridays are our favorite F words at work.
It's big. Yeah. Well, you said it's one of your favorite words. So that's cool. So does this rub off at home, Cadence? Yeah. Good. I'm glad. Heather's got her daughter in here watching, which is so cool. First time we've had, this is episode 97, first time we've had a visitor in the studio. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. I tell you what, I want to embed that same work ethic that I have for my family with my kids. And you suit up, you show up, and you never give up. And so anytime that I can show them what I'm doing and how we're building our business and changing lives, I want to involve them, because they're why I work so hard. They're my why. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, very, very cool. So is there anything I forgot to ask you about you or the business, or?
I reflected on that, and, it's something I've always asked my coaches, what's your motto? And everybody's motto is so different. Sometimes it's nutrition, activity, lifestyle based, but I just thought it would be fun to kind of share my motto that I got from someone who's in their 80s. We actually coach a young lady who's in her 80s and so spunky. I'm actually taller than her, believe it or not. But, if it makes you happy for 30 seconds, 30 minutes, or 30 years, do it.
Wow. So that's her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And doing this makes me so happy.
That's great. Well, that's awesome. Well, so if it makes you happy for 30 seconds, 30 minutes, or 30 years, do it.
Do it.
Wow. Yeah. So I have my mother-in-law, as we get older, we, unfortunately kind of dip down a little bit, but yeah, so they're from Argentina, my wife and her family, and, small frame, under 5 feet. And she's beautiful. Though,
We're fun size, aren't we?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just great. She is so much fun. And, we discovered along the way that we are rock and roll lovers.
Oh my goodness.
So when I said something about the Lost in the Shuffle, Heather was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a Led Zeppelin freak." I'm like, "No, get out of here." So you get the let out once in a while. Got some other cool bands, AC/DC, big. We just had our episode number 90 or 89 was they picked Thunderstruck as the Lost in the Shuffle track, which I know is
after my heart.
Is one of yours. And so I asked you for your selection today, and share with us what you gave us as your selection.
I chose Steve Winwood's "Roll With It, Baby,"
Yep.
or just "Roll With It," which is ironic because I remember hearing that when I was like 4 or 5. I'm an 80s baby. Music's my love language, and that's something my dad and I bonded on right away was rock and roll. But roll with it's just kind of been my theme since day one. You just roll with it. Yeah.
Did you also you ever hear Speedwagon Roll with the Changes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of they kind of reminds me of almost the same time period. Well, no, they're about 10 years earlier, but yeah, it's interesting. Well, very cool song. So when you told me that, I told Heather that, I've ranked my top 5 favorite bands. My favorite band's the Allman Brothers. My second favorite band is Traffic. Well, Steve Winwood just happened to be one of the members of Traffic. So great band, love them. So I was like blown away that we had that commonality. But, if for those who don't know, Steve Winwood at 14 years old, he became a member of the Spencer Davis Group. So imagine 14 years old, this guy being a member of a big time group, and they actually had a large hit when he was, I think he was 16, but they called him Stevie Winwood at that point. And he kind of grew out of his Stevie as he got older. So he went to Traffic, and then after Traffic, he went on to the first super group, which is kind of like an all-star team, taking Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker of Cream, and then Steve Winwood, and they did Blind Faith. They only did one album. And then he kind of took a hiatus. He lives in a 300-year-old house in England. He's got a house in Nashville as well. But then his first 2 solo albums he did out of his house, and then the next 3 he did in the studio. And this came out in 1988. It's the title song from that album called "Roll With It," and great tune. He experienced tremendous success back then, and so I encourage you guys to listen to it. It will be up on the upper right-hand corner of our YouTube experience, and you'll see it in a little card. So it shows up at the end, and they can click on, and you can we'll pick the video that'll fit the song the best. And hey, dip back into some of that Traffic stuff too. It's pretty cool, man. So, well, listen, it has been super pleasure having you on today. Very thankful to have your daughter with you. Thank you for coming in, Cadence. And gosh, you've been awesome, and what you do is even more spectacular. And thanks for helping those people out there who, just get out of bed every morning and embrace life a little bit better than they did the day before, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Have a great week. Thanks.